As we prepare for the SDG Summit that begins tomorrow, we'll close this weekend of action with a dialogue on the SDG Summit and beyond. I'm honored now to welcome to the stage His Excellency, Mr. Dennis Francis, President of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly, and Her Excellency, Her Excellency, Ms. Amina Mohammed, UN Deputy Secretary General and Chair of the UN Sustainable Development Group. Now. So thank you both for the leadership and the commitment to the SDGs and the promise of progress and prosperity that they represent. Over the next few minutes, all of us are eager to hear your reflections and perspectives on this pivotal moment in the history of the SDGs. Halftime. We're at the midpoint of the 2030 agenda, and we've just come out of 2 days of excellent discussions during this SDG Action Weekend. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. President. Allow me to begin with a question. We've just heard the messages and summary of the weekend from our rapporteurs. How do we take the outcomes from this weekend into the summit tomorrow morning? Yes, it's on.
Let me begin, first of all, by thanking all of the participants for their creativity and for the depth of their engagement. We've heard many commitments. We've heard a kind of enthusiasm that really has lifted my spirit. We've heard a renewal of commitment and of determination to do what is necessary to deliver the SDGs. We take these sentiments, these views, into the SDGs tomorrow by building common understanding and a common approach among governments and all stakeholders. That is what is required to move forward in implementing the SDGs. This sense of common purpose, this solidarity, we must regard the SDGs as something of a movement for development and dignity for our planet and for our civilization. And that is what the SDG Summit will, I'm sure, deliver tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. DSG, looking ahead to the next 7 years, in your view, what are the ingredients to sustain action on the SDGs?
Youth in the room? I don't hear you. Women in the room? That's your answer. We've had an amazing 2 days, and it is, you know, giving hope. Aren't we supposed to give hope, the UN, to the world? But you gave us hope over this last 2 days, showing this is truly the people's house. They were amazing moderators. I can see one just to my right there who was doing our women's event this afternoon. And we've just heard voices that have brought not only solutions, but a determination to leave here with action. And so I think that it's those voices that I just called to now, and probably a few men, but it would be really, this is what we need to take home. These messages won't go into tomorrow and the day after, where leaders will be having to take serious decisions about how far they're going to go to commit to the promises they made in 2015. They owe the world basic human rights and development, a life of dignity for everyone. They owe the world to say they will find pathways to peace and not just look to ending a war. No one ever wins a war, and it's often on the burden on the shoulders of women. So I think it's youth voices, it's women's voices, it is youth leadership and women's leadership. I mean, it has to be at the helm of affairs. This is not just a ticking box exercise. So that's what I hope that we will take out. That's what I hope our leaders will hear, and that they will pivot towards the next 7 years and deliver on the promise of the SDGs.
Thank you. The sessions of today talked about specific initiatives to scale SDG implementation. It will take more than pathways to succeed. We have to plan, work, and collaborate differently, and this has been referred to as the fundamental pivot. So DSG, what do you see as the key elements to this pivot for member states, for the private sector, and for civil society, as well as for the UN and multilateral system itself?
Well, this is going to be about Goal 17 and really serious, deep partnerships. It's not that they're not there, but we've got to get past the advocacy into delivering those partnerships that will speak to resources, and we mean the means of implementation, for trade, for technology, for finance, for capacities of civil society, of institutions to deliver on the scale and the urgency. We're talking about having 8 billion people in the mix. And right now, many of them, over half of them, and women, are out of it. And so that's what we would like to see, is how each one of those partnerships plays out at the country level. We signed on to that partnership in 2015, so we want to recommit to that tomorrow with the political declaration that we hope leaders will gavel. We want to hear this in the UN General Assembly when leaders make political statements as they speak from that green marble rostrum to the world. It's not just the room, it's to the world. What will they then say and follow through? Now, all those leaders will build a momentum, but it's a few of them that have to take some serious action. Because today, what we are seeing is in that partnership, there are 2 levels, those that have and those that don't have. And the inequalities are growing. And we need to see leaders who have understanding that that distribution of wealth, that equality in the world, that need for peace and for a life of dignity is something that comes with leadership. It's a responsibility to deliver on promises that are made.
Thank you. Mr. President, building on the DSG's comments just now, how do we ensure the political discourse on the SDGs remains center stage among the competing priorities of the world, not just at the summit, but in the 7 years that come after?
Well, this is a discourse not about metrics. It's not about individuals. It's about people. This is a broad people's agenda. And of course, to the extent that we are looking at a planet that will be inhabited by 8.5 billion people by 2050, it means that consequential action is required on the part of all governments and the stakeholders to effect the sort of change that will really bring genuine development and peace and security to the world. So the political discourse at the United Nations and elsewhere really is a function of the realities that we live. You know, there will be developments in the world, there are other things going on, but we must keep this agenda front and center because it is a commitment that the UN gave in 2015. And certainly, the UN must be able to honor its commitment. So we must use our best efforts, all of us, governments, the NGOs, the stakeholders, in order to deliver the SDGs and Agenda 2030, in order to lift mankind, lift civilization, and create a sustainable future for all. As the DSG said just now, it is entirely unacceptable that there should be such pain, suffering, degradation in the world alongside such extraordinary wealth. No one is disparaging wealth. We need wealth. We want wealth. We want success. We're talking about balance and equity so that everyone is covered under the umbrella. Everyone has a stake in the system. Everyone has hope. That's the best way to create sustainability. And that is precisely what Agenda 2030 does.
Thank you. Much of the conversation this weekend has been on urgency and ensuring we come out of this halftime moment with commitment to concrete actions, as both our rapporteurs spoke so eloquently to. Mr. President, how do we continue to work through these crises, be they geopolitical, environmental, pandemics, or disaster-related? And what gives you hope that we'll be able to overcome these as we try to make progress against the SDGs over the next 7 years?
What gives me hope? What gives me hope, really, is simply this: the indomitable human spirit. Our ability, demonstrated time and time again, to rise to the occasion, to purpose in our hearts that we can and we must. We happen to be speaking in a country where, I think maybe 12 or so years ago, a gentleman dared to say, yes, we can. I say to you today, again, yes, we can. We have the capacity, we have the strength, we have the opportunity, and we have the support, the broad support of peoples everywhere. That's a movement for change, an enormous movement for change, for transformation that will change everything. And so I have confidence that that human spirit, that sense of mission that I heard demonstrated in these halls yesterday and today, will deliver us to where we need to be. And so I'm very optimistic that Agenda 2030, with the support and engagement of all of the stakeholders, all of the governments, will be delivered, and will be delivered in a way that will do us all proud. So,
DSG, if I can ask you, how will the UN system continue to support member states in this process as we move to 2030, and how do we reignite a fire on the SDGs?
Well, we've had this weekend as a deliberate attempt, the UN system bringing all its partners together to demonstrate in these halls and share what we've been doing in the last 8 years. So we know we can do it. And I think it's about us now in the UN system taking that back out to country where we have amazing footprints in over 155 countries, where we should convene new partnerships. Today I heard the mayor of Bogota, who really spoke to the very issues that we need to convene about, and do that differently. So convene the different stakeholders, bring them together with much more specificity around what does it mean, those 17 goals. Often everyone's lining themselves with a goal or another, but this is an integrated set of investments that need to be made, and they need to appear in women's lives and youth lives with jobs. And we saw this week, in fact in the last 2 days, many countries bring resources, commitments that have been made in the last 2 days. So be specific. What does an energy transition look like? How does that feed into connecting every person digitally? How does that look like in the food systems transformation, which is an amazing ecosystem of value chains, supply chains, jobs, and a good future? Education. How do we look at the triple planetary crisis as a backdrop that everyone is dealing with? What do we do with the social protection floor that really needs funding, not ad hoc, but to be an integral part of everyone's budget and expenditure. So I think we go back out. You've seen today, I certainly, Natalia Kanem is the leader out in the field with her people, as is Sima Bahous and UN Women, and there are many more of them in the room. I can't quite see you, the lights in my eyes, but they're there. We have 42 agencies, funds and programs, and you know what? For the first time in our history, we have half of our women, half of those managers of those agencies are women. And they're not only women, they're women from across the world. So we have representation of women who know what it is to lead, who know where the pain points are, and who know how to convene on these issues. And that's what the UN will offer at the country level, is that convening. So challenge us as well. If we're not doing it, walk through that door. The Nations United, the United Nations, is we the people. And the we the people is represented here by governments. But you know what? Those governments got where they got to because of we the people. And so people need to challenge us to do what we're supposed to do. So don't wait for us to come out the door and convene you. Charge us to convene. We still have that credibility in many countries. We still can bring together many different stakeholders who wouldn't otherwise sit in the same room. And that's what we really need to do. This global town hall for our global village, it brings in all our member states with an equal voice. Doesn't do as well with all the stakeholders, except this weekend we did pretty well. We need to push that. We need to make sure that the voices we hear, the solutions we have, the solidarity that we're bringing back together, because that ought to reignite the SDGs, is what we take with determination. That anger and frustration, stick it in a bottle of determination and take it back with you, and then we get the job done.
I think it's really the right moment to both congratulate and thank you, DSG, for your vision and for your leadership. They are really both evident in the success and the inspiration of this Action Weekend. So thank you. So let me ask you both one final question. In 2 or 3 words, President Francis and DSG Amina, as you look forward to the summit tomorrow, what are you most excited about?
What excites me most is the fact that this is the most consequential challenge that faces international society at this juncture. And it's consequential because it portends a future of stability, peace, dignity, growth, prosperity, and success, not just for those of us who inhabit the planet, but for the planet itself. And I'm excited because everything tells me that that power we have, innate power we have to act when action is most necessary, will be delivered tomorrow and will continue to be delivered throughout High Level Week.
DSG?
So I'm really excited that those 17 goals still mean something to people, and we can bring people around the table for them. And number 5 is the most important to all of us if we're really to talk about 50% of the world and getting the wind under the wings of the SDGs. But I'm even more excited because when we walk into those rooms on Monday and on Tuesday, because it doesn't stop on Monday and on Tuesday, we will go with a sober reflection that 15% of the targets being met is failure. We will push forward the solutions that you've given us substance to in this last 2 days and the demands, and we will come out of that with the solidarity that is needed to act. I believe that. I think this next 7 years is going to be the game won in the second half. We can do it.
So thank you both. Thank you both for this engaging and inspirational conversation. We're all looking forward to the outcome of the sessions tomorrow and on Tuesday, and to engaging in further dialogues about achieving the global goals over the coming 7 years. Thank you both.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
See you
you.
on Monday.
And now to all of you, first of all, thank you for staying with us to the end. I've been